Evening. So good to be here as always. Let me get myself situated here. Yeah. All right. Looking good. How's everybody doing? We are on that Wednesday night hump here. I, I was around noon today. I said, "Oh my gosh, I got to do a live stream tonight." So it really is a hump. But I'm here. I remembered, and I'm so glad you guys showed up. And while we wait for more people to show up here in the live stream, I want to take a moment to thank you guys first for taking your time off of whatever it is you're doing or while you're doing to listen to this live stream. Always really greatly appreciated. Frederick Rogers in the house. Welcome, Mr. Rogers. Welcome, sir. I hope you're doing well. It's really greatly appreciated, guys, because time's a valuable thing, and you spending a little bit of yours with me is really greatly appreciated. So I want to say thank you very much for that. With that out of the way, Ben Allmark in the house. Welcome, sir. Hey, how you doing? Everybody's starting to roll right in. Hey, everybody. You know, uh, what was I going to say? I had just a complete. I had a whole spiel I was going to get into there, and I've completely forgot about what it was going to be. Oh yeah, right. So if you go to my regular site and look at the community page, you'll see a picture of my uncle Carlton with Derek Trucks. Hey, Ben Larson in the house. Good evening. Can't stop playing music. How you doing? Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to show up tonight. Hey, everybody. My Uncle Carl with Derek Truck. And he was saying to me that Derek Trucks is really one of the big inspiration for his slide guitar playing, which is coming from my Uncle Carlton, uh, having been playing since the late 50s. That's really saying something. And there's a picture of the two of them together on my community page. Take a look at that. You guys think I'm kidding about my uncle? There's a reason why he's in the Blues Hall of Fame. He knows everybody. He starts talking about people, and I'm like, wow, he really knows a lot of folks. So check that picture out. It's pretty cool. That's how us McWilliams roll. Mr. Watson in the house. Evening all, caught you on Dave's podcast. My good stuff. Yeah, that's right. Hey guys, thank you for reminding me about that, Mr. Watson. Yeah, if you haven't checked it out, as I said, I did a podcast with Three Chord Dave, and a lot of fun. It's right now available to watch on his channel. So go over to Three Chord Dave channel. And we were talking about the new or used market, and just shooting the breeze about a lot of different topics. And somehow or another, I made it through it coherently and had a good time. I think I was able to make my points, and he had some great ones himself, as always. He's a fantastic host, and I want to thank him so much for having me on. It was a lot of fun. Look forward to doing some more of that in the future. So check that out. Yep, did a podcast with him, and it was interesting. Speaking of my uncle Carlton and Ziggy Sauer. Ziggy Sauer, if you listen in on this on the replay or if you show up tonight, I heard what you said last week. You asked me to look into hardware and software and things like that for doing music production. I haven't touched on that very much. And that is true. I really haven't gotten into it very much. He was, speaking about Carlton, again, he was lamenting to me the last time we had a phone conversation about his hardware. He was like, "Man, I've got all this hardware here, and it's just gathering dust because, and I can't give it away." He said a lot of it, EQs, some preamps, things of that nature. The Ampex Oral Cider, the hardware version of that, which I actually have had two of those in my lifetime. Uh, and the dual and the single, and just a lot of things that he no longer uses because, quite frankly, he does all his recording and he still records his stuff, and his stuff is actually really good. My uncle Carlton, he played me a track the other day, and it was current. It's there was no, oh, this sounds like something back in the day. No, it really was current. I was surprised. I was like, wow, that could be on the radio right now. It should be because it's a lot better than most things that there are there already. But he uses a Fostex R8. And because of the built-in mic preamps in that, because of the built-in EQs and reverbs and all the stuff that you need, that quite frankly, you're limited to 8 tracks, but you can bounce tracks. You can make that work. It's a digital environment, so you're not going to get any signal loss. Just have to be very careful how you do your bounces. But he does his work on that, and he has no need for that hardware anymore. When I was interning at studios in LA and going off and getting gigs doing mix work myself, um, I had to know how to use the hardware on a lot of like the LA2 pool tech stuff, you name it. I had to know it. And I was fortunate that I was in professional studios pretty much well when I started working with Reggie at South Central Unit. He was the producer who gave me my big shot, my big entrance into the industry, that I was around professional equipment. And so it was a knowledge base that I gained, that I had to have, that I had to use. And if I didn't know how to use it, I sure had to figure it out real fast. I remember I was doing a remix on, not a remix, I was doing a mix on a Levert album, R&B group called Levert. I was mixing a song called Lock and Key. If you look that up on YouTube, Levert Lock and Key, that's my mix on that song. And I went to a studio and they had an early version of what we now know as Pro Tools, even earlier than that. Uh, and I had no idea how to use it completely, just out of it. So I said to the guy, just let me set it up and do an old fashioned mix, moving faders and working with EQ and adding stuff in. And so and it was a situation where I just said, you know what, I don't know that technology. Let me go what I know, and it saved that session. But then, of course, Pro Tools took over, and then the in the box era came in, and boy, did it come in hard. And it seemed like a lot of people, when they were putting their studios together, the hardware kind of went out the window. And so tonight we're going to be diving deep into the pros and cons of two approaches, covering everything from sound quality to workflow and cost when it comes to hardware versus software. I want to take that approach tonight because I call this the death and rebirth of hardware, uh, because there was a death period there during the in the box period, and there's starting to become a renaissance out there, or there's starting to be a renaissance out there of people who are taking. There always has been, but let's be honest, most people were doing it in the box. It's kind of reversing back where there's kind of a rebirth occurring. And of course, there's hybrid systems out there as well. So I want to talk about that as well. Um, you know, there are a lot of price points when it comes to putting a studio together. and you're making a decision whether it's going to be hardware based, whether it's going to be which, and really to me, a hardware based studio, you're running Studers. You're running, quarter-inch tape, and you mix it down to a 1 inch master, 2 inch master, 1 inch master, and or is it a half inch? Anyway, it's been so long, but that's what I would consider to be a true hardware-based studio. Of course, um, I will throw into that group if you're recording to DAWs that like some of the Tascam DA88s that I used to record to back in the day. Actually, those were cassette tapes. Um, a digital recording in that regard, I'll put in that as well. I had a Fostex R8. Speaking of the R8, I had the R8 reel to reel. It was the first version of that before they went digital, and I used that for my demo recording when I was working at home. So I had a complete analog hardware studio. Then, of course, I changed that over, and now I'm thinking about a hybrid. So I want to talk about that tonight. So let's start with a quick overview. Um, in the realm of music production, there's always been this, well, at least there's recently been this debate. Should you invest in hardware or go the software route? Now, both have their set of advantages, as I kind of alluded to there, and challenges. But which one truly reigns supreme, in my opinion? These are my based on from the time I was 16 years old until now, so 40 years, 41 years of experience recording, and the conclusions that I've come to. You may be surprised. So let's talk about the allure of hardware since there's been a rebirth. This allure of hardware, um, when we're talking about physical equipment like synthesizers, drum machines, and outboard processors, basically. One of the things about hardware is the sound quality. Now, I always talk about when I'm talking about guitars, and I used to allude an Epiphone is 95% there to a Gibson, meaning there's about a 5% difference there in terms of some quality, sound, and things of that issue between an Epiphone and a Gibson back in the day. But for a lot of people, that 5% wasn't enough to justify the additional cost. Boy, has that changed in terms of that cost. That additional is no longer additional. But the sound quality issue between hardware and software based synths, for example, it's not the same thing. The hardware, to my ears, and I will start this out by saying the hardware will always trump the software versions of everything. Um, Sound quality, for example, the Yamaha DX7 synth is legendary for its distinctive sound, which many argue is superior to any software emulation. I haven't heard an emulation. My brother owns a DX7. He still has his DX7. He's asking me the other day, should he sell it? I was like, yeah, sell it to me. I'd love to have that keyboard. But the software emulations that I have, and I've heard of that keyboard, knowing the real thing, having really had to use that back in the day, that was the keyboard. So I know it very well. Owned one myself. Is not the same thing. And that's just the truth of the matter. Is that there's a sound quality issue there that software, and I would say that's across the board, with the before mentioned things, emulations of amps. It's good enough, but it's not. I mean, it's good enough for the recordings. Don't get me wrong, but there is a difference there. Will it make a difference to the audience? Probably not. But that 5% is there. So the sound quality, analog hardware often provides a richer, warmer sound due to the natural imperfections and character of analog circuitry, which is quite true. There is something software struggles to replace and replicate fully. Um, think about the warmth of a vintage tape machine versus a digital plugin as another example there of that. My EP3 from 1975, I here on this channel bought many pedal emulations of that, different ones from different companies, and did head to heads against the real thing in the emulations, and nothing came close. There were some good ones, but wasn't the same thing. There was a lift. There's just a little noticeable lift that the real thing gives to you when you use it that the emulations do not. Um, Physicality and tactile experience is the next thing I wrote. There's also something to be said about the physical aspect of turning knobs and pressing buttons. It's a more engaging and intuitive experience and can inspire creativity in ways that a mouse and keyboard simply can't. Now, I use for my recording that I've used for years, you guys see it sitting here behind me, is this Presonus, there you can see it, is this Presonus controller. This is the fader port. This allows me to use the EQs, use the faders with a tactile thing, record, stop, punch in, do all the functions that I would do on a mixing board. Um, and I can't live without it. There are many different versions of this in different ways that people have done this. I use Studio One. This is Personas. It's made to go with Studio One, so I've always had it. Actually, this is the second one I've had because I burnt the first one out. I seriously did. I did 3 or 4 albums with that thing, and I burnt out the fader. So this is actually the second one I've had. And it's because I grew up having that in the studio system, having that tactile experience. So I just didn't respond to the mouse kind of click and turn kind of thing. It just never worked for me. Historical significant. Historically, hardware has been the backbone of music production. I thought I would point this out just to say, just because it's old, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not good. From the Beatles' use of tape machines to the synthesizers that define 80s music, hardware has a storied past. Remember, the iconic sound of Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody was captured on analog tape. I was listening to that, so that's why I made the note here the other day. Brian May was going through the studio tapes and of that, and just track by track going through it, and it was just an amazing thing to just listen to and have him explain that. But it was all on tapes, and it was tape that was deteriorating, that was spliced together, and it was quite something. But it was all done on tape. And I would argue, even though they've digitalized those recordings since, those original recordings still can be heard on YouTube, and I would say that they're good. As a matter of fact, there is a quality to them that lacks a warmth, as I stated here, that lacks in digital realm of recording. So there's that. Um, Now, hardware is not without its downsides. Let's be real. A lot of it has become obsolete for various reasons. But I think there's two pieces of hardware that every studio should have in some form or another that will never go obsolete. To be honest with you, and I'll talk about those here in a minute. But however, hardware is not without its downsides. Seamus O'Brien. Hey, Mike, how you doing? Saw your post earlier. Very cool picture indeed. Tell us about your uncle sometimes in one of your live streams. Well, I like to do better than that. I'd like to get him on or to do something similar using up. I've learned now how what's the best streamer to use to do that kind of thing. I've just got to teach my uncle Carlton how to use it. But yeah, my Uncle Carlton, like I say, he's no joke. He knows everybody, and he's been around. And yeah, House Dome Funk Musical Collective and Productions. Welcome, sir. Good to see you. Evening, lads and lasses. Hope all are having a great day, night, or evening. I have always used Reaper as my main DAW, but got turned on the Fruity Loop Studio in the last year. Lots of plugins in DAWs. Yeah, you know, again, it's a different world than when I was growing up. When I was growing up, everything was hardware. And then when Pro Tools came in, Jock and I got a chance for Motown Records to do some remixes for Rosie Gaines. She was a very good artist on her own, but she famously sang for Prince "Diamonds and Pearls." As a matter of fact, that's her singing the female part on that Prince song. And Jock and I got a chance to do remixes, and it was Pro Tools was the first thing that we used, and we were doing a hybrid thing there. We were locking up Pro Tools with our DAT machines, our DA88s, and and it's funny to me that people are now coming back to hybrid systems, and we'll talk about that too. But it's funny because that all went away, and then it became in the box. And again, tonight is just to give you the pros and cons of both. I have my opinions, but since I was asked to talk about this subject, and I very rarely touch upon it, I thought I would do this. I think I wrote too many notes. I kind of sat down this afternoon, started typing here. I don't have to go through all of this. Now, owning hardware again has its own sets of challenges. First and foremost is maintenance. Hardware requires regular upkeeps. That's no joke, which can be both time consuming and expensive. There's cost, there's space and portability, there's recall and workflow issues. Um, there's no recall on an analog processor. In a digital thing, hey, you can set everything and just do a recall on it. And when you bring that song back in, everything is set up the way it was during the last mix. On the SSL boards, we were able to do mix recalls, but on the smaller boards that I had to work with, even in some 24 track studios that did not have that, if I had to go back, and I did on one occasion have to do a remix, I had to make notes of where the faders were. Some cats used to take Polaroids of where everything was. It used to be like that, just to remember where everything was set. And boy, that's a big difference from what you got today, and a little less of a headache. But one that I thought that was worth bringing up here. Prince. Yeah, that's right. Um, there you go, exposing our age again. Good evening, my Phineas Henshaw, Mr. Henshaw in the house. Yeah, I can't. I've given up on it. I'm going to own my age. As the young people say, I'm going to own it. It is what it is. Um, so cost is a big thing. Now, I two pieces that your studio really, whichever way you go, DAW or hardware based or hybrid, there's two things that you really need. You're going to need some kind of mic preamps, and I really think that you should invest in the best mic preamp that you possibly could. Another thing is a compressor. Now, this is if you're going the hardware route. You're also going to have to put up a patch bay, but that's a separate issue. But even if you go the DAW route, you're going to need, I think, a good mic preamp. I myself, and those go, and you're also going to need, if you go the DAW route, is an interface. I have an interface here, which is the Euphoria. Um, the creme de la creme, in my opinion, of interfaces is, and everybody will across the board should agree with this, is the Universal Audio Apollo. $900, pricey thing, but it's got good mic pre's in it. It's got a compressor. It's got a built-in. If you hook it up to your computer, I believe it also has its own DAW built into it, and a lot of good things going for it. And it's been used on Grammy award winning albums for the last few years, a while now. $900. That's what I consider to be the top. They're they fall down from there, but you should always try to get quality interviews. Now, the interface. Now, this Euphoria is what I consider to be a cheaper price but quality interface. It's actually got good preamps. If you did a little research on it, you find out the guys who make the preamps on this are actually quality ones, and that's actually one of the most important things. But I use this. Let me clean the dust off of it. It's a little dusty here. Sorry, guys. It's been sitting here. This is old, cheap, techie. But believe it or not, as a mic preamp, if you get a good one, and they're not, some of them are great, but a super cheap way of getting an inexpensive mic preamp, a true tube mic preamp, by the way, too, is this old art MP. This actually has a tube in it. You can lift this top off and you can change the tube. I know that because I went through 5 or 6 tubes to find the one that worked best with this unit. Tubes and units, sometimes they jibe, sometimes some sound better than others. You have to go through that hunt, but I did that with this. And I've used this on every recording that I've done, believe it or not. This has been my really low cost way of having a quality mic preamp, you know. But there are a lot of them out there. But again, mic preamp, a compressor, those are two things that you're probably going to need to start out with, either way. And a lot of options there. In the interface world, like I said, you got the Universal Audio Apollo, you've got what is that? Antelope for 500, about $400 less. Then you get to something like this this Euphoria over here. I wouldn't go any cheaper than this Euphoria. It's at the bottom range of where I would go. But again, if you can find one of these, the mic pre's in there are pretty good. But I have this also as a mic preamp that I use going into that tube mic preamp. So a lot of doesn't have to be of costly, but high-end hardware can be incredibly costly. Again, I'm always looking for the low-cost quality solutions. Um, but certainly, if you wanted to go old school and get like a Moog synthesizer or something like that, that's going to cost you a lot of money. And that's not even considering the cost of repairing it. Even my EP3, I had to have it serviced. It was serviced very well, but it required service. Space and portability, also a lot of that stuff is big. Again, the EP3 was this big. The pedal copies of that was this big, and the software is this big. So it really depends upon what you're looking at there, what you want to do, how you want to go. House Dumb Funk says, songs always take on a life of their own as you bring each instrument into the mix. I like to make sure we can play anything live without it sounding too different. But it's harder to take the time. No, I agree with that. All my compositions, uh, I always played them and performed them, especially the stuff that I was doing with my band Asanoki. When I played 95%, I used my drummer, but all the other instruments I played mostly. I did use Kago for some guitar parts, but mostly myself. But I did it so that it could be performed exactly like the record, like a song like "Strolling in the Moonlight," for example. And on that one, I played the keyboards, or I played the guitar parts if I had a keyboard player, depending upon the band I had at that time. So, because Asanoki was Was got big, got small, got big. It was always changing. I kind of like that. I wanted to do a funkadelic George Clinton kind of thing, I guess. Um, Phineas says I use a Mackie USB mixer or Zoom LA for my. Yeah, there you go. And and again, there are mixers that have built-in interfaces that have great mic pre's in them too. That's another route you can go. And there you've got the tactile. You got a couple of things going. I have one of those art preamps. Yeah, yeah, man. This thing. I've had there are bad ones, there are good ones. There really is. That's true of them. But and you do have to swap a lot of tubes. There is a new old stock tube from the '60s in there in this thing. That worked. Ironically, I believe it's a Dutch tube. So it's funny. Also, make sure you have a direct box transformer, correct? Also, as well. Yeah. Ground loops are still a thing. Well, if you have a patch bay, you can avoid ground loops depending upon how you set up your preamps going into a interface preamp. But that's why you need the patch bay. But again, I don't want to get too deep into the woods on that. I just want to briefly touch upon on the cost of going a hardware route first. The rise of software flexibility and innovation. Now, software has revolutionized music. There's no doubt about that. It's actually made it so that every Tom, Dick, and Harry can have, if they got a computer, even in some cases a phone, they can make a record. They can record. The same thing goes with movie making as well. But it's revolutionized music production in recent years. With just a laptop and some plugins, you can access a virtual studio that rivals any hardware-based setup. Again, in your computer, you can have as many, of the classic hardware stuff as you want as plugins, as long as your computer and your memory and storage can handle it. And that's a great thing because it's always funny to me. I say to people that that big studio that I used to work in at Yab Young, Babyface's Studio A, that the SSL had Studers, had just racks of just your dream hardware there. And all of that has been reduced down to a computer that you can pack up and carry through. It is revolutionary. And I think the younger generation, having not grown up in studios like that, don't recognize how mind blowing it is. And the cost advantages of that as well. You don't have to go into the studio, pay right track studio, first studio I went to, 16 track studio, I was paying $20 an hour. And that was a lot of money back in the 80s for a kid, a teenager. So there's that flexibility and portability, ease of use, the innovation of it, as I just said. A lot of things there, a lot of positives. And it cannot be understated how revolutionary software was when we were working with Motown and doing. They said we want you to use this plugin, this DAW. We're like, okay, let's figure out how to make it work first, and figure out how it works, and then go from there. I had no idea even then that the effect that would have. That that would be it, or the big alternative. Now, despite its many benefits, however, software has been often criticized for not matching the sound quality of hardware. No doubts there. And while plugins have come a long way, some producers could argue, my friends argue with me, that they can't fully replicate the warmth and character of hardware gear. Me and Jock have had this conversation quite a few times, and we're both of the opinion that there's just something missing there that especially in the highs and the low end, that I just can't explain to you. It is the best word, and it's not. And I hate words like warmth, but it is the best descriptive in terms of a word. Listen to, if you can, a '70s album If you got an album, you got to have a record player. And listen to the warmth of those recordings, and then listen to that same song on your iPhone or whatever, even better quality than that, the speaker system, the digital and the old record version, and tell me that there's not something there. Tell me there's something not there. I've done it. My cabin that I stay at from time to time has a record player up here in the Gelderland, and I've literally done it. I listened to the record collection there, and I listened to the digital version of it. And it was quite different. Quite different. Ground loops are still a thing. Logic Pro is $200 running on a Mac M2, far beyond my quarter-inch Fostex 8-track. Yeah, man. I had the same. I had the same Fostex. I told you the R8 that had the detachable uh, 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 pad on it, record stop thing. You could actually pull it out. Yeah, I had that thing, and I have no idea. It has lost. I didn't sell it. It has disappeared in the shadow of the time. I think Ricky Turner, the keyboardist in LA, has it. I think I gave that to Ricky before I left to Japan on my second tour. But yeah, um, cough, cough, Fender Rhodes, cough, cough, plug-in will not do it. Yeah, no kidding. I've got quite a few Fender Rhodes emulations. The software company that shall not be named that ripped me off and discontinued all my lifetime guarantee plugins. One of those was their much hyped Fender Rhodes emulation, and I owned a Fender Rhodes. I owned the Fender Rhodes that was used on an old rap song called "She Keeps on Passing Me by the Far Side, because they recorded that in Reggie's studio, and I bought that Fender Rhodes from Reggie, and I had it for a while. He bought it back because the Far Side guy wanted it back, and I didn't want to cause any beef, so that's how that went. But I have had a so listen to "She Keeps on Passing Me By," that Fender Rhodes. That's the one that I know of Fender Rhodes, and nobody, I have not found one yet that makes me happy. That does it for me. So yeah, yeah. Despite its many benefits, software is often criticized for not matching the sound quality, the perception. There's also perception issues. Some people believe that software-based producers are taking shortcuts in their work and that their work is less authentic than those who use hardware. Now, I have been guilty of this snobbery a little bit when it comes to the beat producers because playing all being a multi instrumentalist, I do sometimes have a little snobbery in me that comes out, especially when I see the ads like, "Well, you can buy this software that'll put the chords of the piano together for you. You can make." Dude, why don't you just learn how to play the friggin' keyboard? Just learn how to play it. Why don't you start there? Might do you some good. But other than that, there is a perception there being less authentic. And this can be a barrier in professional settings where there is a preference for hardware. The studios, of course, the record labels are going to want you to record in a hardware studio because that's part of the money that they're using their system to rip you off. That's part of their game. But there is no denying the quality of those recordings. Now, you have some artists now who have won Grammys that did it literally in their bedroom and using again the Universal Audio Apollo, by the way. So maybe this preference for hardware is not as prevalent as it was when I was growing up, but it was certainly there. Digital artifacts, pain in the ass. I hate digital artifacts, and I had to buy software just to deal with digital artifacts. To clean up things, pops, um, things of that nature. So I added that to the list because that's just something that just absolutely irks me when I'm mastering and I'm listening. And when I'm mastering, I'm listening to that song hundreds of times, and I'm listening for everything, and even the time where my cat's meow picked up because I was doing a vocal or recording something, but I left it in. That kind of artifact, that's okay. The pops and the clicks drive me nuts, and I had to buy software just to deal with that. Just to deal with that. Depreciation and longevity. Unlike hardware, which can retain or even increase in value, in some cases, again, like I said with my Uncle Carlton, not so much, software can become obsolete very quickly. Again, I talk about that Tonex pedal because it is, again, a perfect example of this, of something that I believe is going to be obsolete quickly. You spend hundreds on a plug-in or a pedal that's no better than a plug-in. That's no longer supported a few years down the line. I talked about this. I was talking about this. I won't get into any more detail than this note here, but just to bring that point back up again, emphasize it a little bit. Benny Larson in '82, vinyl printing switched to digital mastering. Yeah, because of Stevie Wonder's In Square Circle album. Uh, Stevie Wonder's In Square Circle album in '82, I believe, was one of the first digital pressed albums, and I listened to it. I had it, and the sound of that on vinyl with that mastering was phenomenal. If you haven't heard it, listen to Stevie Wonder's In Square Circle album, and then of course Michael Jackson. A lot of those R&B artists were the ones that were on the front end of that, believe it or not, to my memory. I have three Fender Mustang amps. I have to order a laptop just to yeah, it's funny. Listen to Three Chord Dave and I's podcast. I go over to Three Chord Dave's channel and listen to the podcast that he just put up. Three Chord Dave talked about the Fender Mustang, and I used that when I was talking about the Tonex. I said those are two peas in the same pod. I just don't think people realize that. You know, I don't think people realize that. Funny. Now the hybrid approach, the best of both worlds. Guys, I don't like recording. I have a Mac here, a good one, with everything obviously that I need to make solid recordings. You can listen to my recordings and hear the quality of them. But I am no longer really enamored with this kind of recording either. I would like to go back to, I like what my Uncle Carlton is doing. I'm not planning on doing any more serious recording anyway, but I am going to put together an album of stuff from my previous albums, not Asanoki stuff, Mike McWilliams stuff, that I'm going to put together in a third album that I'm going to release on Bandcamp. And I will put some new material I'm planning that I will record here for that release. So there are some new songs on it. And to do that, I am seriously considering buying the Fostex R8. It's a $250 euro deal. Not expensive. I've told you before that I was looking at a few DAWs, and I've come to the conclusion that the R8 will do it for me because I can record everything that I need to do on that and then bounce it into the computer and do the mix and mastering on the computer if I want to. Now, I consider doing that R8 as being a hardware, even though it's a digital recorder. It's a hardware-based digital recorder, and then going into the software to finish it out, I think is the best of both worlds. And it's so easy, and it just sits right here. It's about this big, it's easy, it's familiar. I'm not, I don't have to do plugins. I don't have to do any of that stuff to get the stuff down to tape. It's got great reverbs, and it's got good stuff in it already. You really can make a record with that thing. It's quite amazing, and people have done a lot more with less. So I'm thinking about going that, and that's an inexpensive route, by the way, too. Might I mention? Again, I'm always looking at the best inexpensive, but again, I am going to use the best preamps that I can. So what goes in, I will invest. Actually, I'm thinking about in a new mic preamp system. So there is that. So workflow integration is a thing. You can use software for most of your production work and integrate hardware for specific tasks, like recording vocals through a hardware preamp or using an analog compressor on your mix bus. Creative options like this gives you the freedom to experiment with different tools and techniques and maybe coming across something to improve your sound quality. Just you know, hunting around, plugins. Okay, you plug it in and drag down. Oh, there's a preset. Oh, okay, that sounds good. Move on. You know, I was never. That's where I consider there'd be cheating too. That's why I made that note about kind of cutting corners is using presets on plugins. Um, that doesn't sit right with me. It's one of the reasons, again, I have this personas here because I can tweak things and I can work things, and plus, you want to understand what it is that plugin does, and if you don't, then you're just putting stuff. Oh, that sounds good. Let's just drop a bunch of crap on it, and maybe it'll sound good without really understanding what each one of those things is. So that's again why my thought behind making that note about cheating, but the opposite side of that is that sometimes you can come across some interesting sounds. The gated drum sound made famous in the 80s came across from the Phil Collins recording In the Air Tonight. That was actually a studio mistake. And sometimes studio mistakes can turn into things that it will drive you nuts if you lived in the 80s and had to listen to that damn gated drum on friggin' everything after that for about 5, 6 years. But sometimes the opposite could be there. So the key is to understand the strengths and limitations of both and to use them in a way that entices your creative process. I always want to bring it back with everything back to the creative process, because that's really what we're talking about here. Simplifying your workflow, improving your workflow in whatever direction, hybrid, hardware or software you want to go, but making that workflow as effective as possible to keep the creative juices going. We're not, I talked about Prince. I often talk about Prince because he really was, in terms of his work ethic, something that every musician, regardless of your genre, should think about. But he did have advantages. He had an engineer who set everything up for him. He had, and to the point where he literally, there's a video of him walking in the studio, sitting down. A guy hands him a bass guitar while the track is going, and he starts playing on top of it. You know, you everything's in tune, everything's set up for him. He just had to sit down and start playing. We don't have that. And that is one thing that he had that I am envious of at times, because I have to set and mic everything up too. And that can get into the way of the creative process. He was able to be purely creative. He didn't have to do any of the nuts and bolts thing, and that's to be admired. But we can't do that. So let's find ways to simplify our recording processes as individuals in order so we can get as close to that as possible. Is what I'm trying to say. Phineas says, how do you spell that user's name you mentioned about the podcast? So 3Chord Dave, THREE, 3Chord, CHORD, Dave, DAVE, 3Chord Dave. Just check him out here on YouTube. Just go on YouTube and check out his channel. It's his last upload, so pretty easy to find. We did a podcast that he's got somewhere else, I believe, but the YouTube version is up. So take a listen to that. Take a look at that. A lot of fun where I cover some of these things. So we talk about some of this stuff, believe it or not. Frederick Rogers, I have a Fender Rhodes keyboard. Never use it. I am envious of you, Mr. Rogers. I would. It is my aspiration to get a Fender Rhodes, but they are costly now. They are not cheap. They are in the 8,000 range, 5 to 8 for the really good condition ones. And it is, however, my aspiration to have one just to sit around. Yeah, it's heavy as hell. I I was doing a gig in Japan, a wedding gig, and I was playing and singing. And then they had this girl group come in, and the girl, the Japanese girl, her keyboard was a Fender Rhodes. And there in Japan, there's a kohai senpai relationship where, okay, who's the senior person here? And their manager's mind, I was the low man on the totem pole, so he asked me if I would help carry this fucker in, and I said, all right, I'm gonna be a gentleman, I'm gonna help you carry it in. Carried it in, they did their thing, and then they were kind of looking at me to help carry it out to the car. I was like, y'all are high because I know what that, no. And she had a particularly heavy one. I don't know what maybe she would put some extra rocks in there just to mess with me. I don't think it's a top-notch version. Yeah, but that's really just a matter of taking it down to a technician and having it tuned up. If it's the 88 or the 76, either one will do. I'll take the 88. I'll take the 76. The one I had, I believe, was the 88. Yeah, stage 88. But anyway, I digress. So, in conclusion, whether you choose hardware, software, or a combination of both, it's important to focus on what helps you achieve your creative flow. And getting back to that, your creative goals. Remember, there's no one size fits all solution in music production. Everybody's going to have a different take. Everybody's going to want to do it a different way. It's all about finding the right tools that work for you. But again, don't limit yourself to thinking you just have to be in the box. And don't think that you have to invest a lot of money if you want to go the hardware route. There are price points there as well that we discussed. Um, what's here? I might sell it. No good to me. I'm not a keyboard player. Well, yeah, I'm not in the market for one now, but keep me in mind. Send me, seriously keep me in mind because I would be a serious buyer. Have to figure out how to get it around and get it up and around. Um, yeah, keep me in mind. Absolutely, I'm not exaggerating, by the way, too. Phineas says, I remember when you could find them in pawn shops for 200. Then something happened. Same thing with the Hammond B3s. Yeah, I know. I remember you could get the old Yamaha C7. You remember that? The stage piano. Prince had one of those. That's what he used on stage, the Yamaha C7. I remember seeing one of those for $200 at West LA Music at one point. They were, and I don't know. If we knew what we knew, we would be, if, what is that? If wishes were fishes, we'd all be fed or something like that. Cost a fortune ship. Yeah. Well, there's ways around that. I am a master of getting costs down on shipping, so I'm not so concerned about that. Especially with my company. If I send it through my company, then no, not a big deal. Yeah. So in conclusion, guys, the workflow. It's always about the workflow. The things you do in order to prove that. And again, I am going to get a mic preamp that's going to sit up here. I'm going to get that R8, and I'm going to do a very inexpensive kind of hybrid thing. We're going to patch bay, a compressor, a couple of things that I've done before. It's an easy setup, and gotta have the patch bay to avoid ground loops and feedback. But I'm going to go that route and simplify it because I want to come in here, sit down, turn that R8 on, plug in my guitar, and program a beat. It samples. You can put loops into it, so I can program a beat, do something, put that into it, grab my guitar, start playing. I don't want to turn on the computer, open up the DAW, open up the screen and set up and do this and then go over here, and I want to minimalize. I want to be able to sit down and start recording quickly, because when I'm in the mood to do it, that's when I'm at my best. When I'm walking up the steps and I hear something, I'm like, hey, I should put that down. That's how I want to get going forward. um, do I think I can do it on something like that and drop in the quality of my previous recordings? No, because I know how to get a good sound out of everything. I'm confident of that. But it's workflow. So again, with you guys, same thing. Um, it's just workflow. So whichever way you want to go. I don't talk about this very often, but that's one of the things that I really aspire to, just to think of this simplifying my workflow. I think I had it a lot easier when I was 16. and 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 I just had the Fostex 4-track. Things were so much easier. I wasn't even worried about reverb. There was no well, reverb was whatever was in the room. And most of the cases it was a bathroom. A little unboxing here, guys, before we finish up tonight. Let's change the subject here. I have here a package that arrived from AliExpress. Now that I've banned myself from Temu, I'm back to AliExpress. But I ordered a set of P90 pickups because the weather has gotten good. And as you know, I have that project where I'm putting together, I got all the parts here in different places. I'm putting together my own Strat. And this is the plate that I've decided to use. So it's a HH configuration. Um, but I didn't want to use humbuckers. I wanted to use P90s. So I saw these. So I haven't seen these. I haven't opened this up. So let's do this together. Yep, that's definitely Chinese. Let's see. So, oops, drop something there. Not important. Probably the screws. Oh, all right. So there we have my P90 pickups that I paid $40 for. So not a lot. Not a big weight to them. But I thought to myself that for the price, that these would look great like that on the guitar. So instead of humbucker, I'm going to do a P90 Strat. I've decided. So yeah, look at that. That's all right. A little bit different, cool. Again, like I said, I picked the color because of the black plate and the way that that looks. I've decided on the body color; it's going to be gray, and of course, you're going to have. Where is it? Can I get it here? Yeah. Yeah, sorry guys. It's gonna have this neck. So, gray body, that neck, that kind of configuration. So yeah, I'm excited about that. Look at that. That looks good. I like that. Might have to change the knobs back here again. We'll see once it's done. I was just experimenting with that. But yeah, check it out. Pretty sweet. Not very expensive. Um P90s, these could sound great. These could sound crappy. The reviews on them said that for the price that they're actually not bad. That they're actually a step above Wilkerson's in some people's opinion. So that's good because I've had Wilkerson P90s and they were okay. I'm excited to hear how these sounds. Is the P90 space for a Strat? I have a 65 Fender Mustang. Sometimes someone cut the P90, which I got the guitar, but the P90 seems Gibson space. Yeah, I get what you're saying. In this case, no, it'll be just fine. As a matter of fact, yeah, it lines up just great. Yeah, and that's actually a good point. And it lines up with the holes as well. So this, I don't have to cut anything. This will feed right through. That's a good point. It didn't even occur to me. Yeah, this seems to be all right. Can't speak on any others, but this one seems to be spaced correctly. So there's that. How will it sound? How have I seen Strat P90 before? Yes, I have seen them. That's why it fascinated me. Just as shits and giggles. And if I don't like it, uh, I've got the three other configurations back here to choose from. So just something I thought I would do as that project, and we'll see how it works out. You never know. It might be cool. It may not be. But yeah, got two of them here again for a pretty good price. So yeah, that's awesome. Yep, that's awesome. So that arrived today. So we'll see how that works out. Could be good, could be night, could be not. No, yeah, that'll work. But we shall see. All right. I think that is enough excitement for one Wednesday night hump. Wait a minute, that came out completely wrong. I think that's enough for tonight, guys. We've covered quite a few interesting subjects here that we haven't really talked about before. And I'm actually happy to talk about it because, it kind of put me into the mindset of thinking about recording again. Um, Again, like I said, I have decided that I'm going to put together a compilation of songs that are not Asanoki songs per se, but still, we're going to put them as Asanoki, seeing that I am basically Asanoki. And I'd like to record some new material for that. I have some tracks that I have here in the dome that are floating around that I think would be appropriate for that project. So there is that. So I am thinking about recording again. So I thought I would get into that tonight. And I thank Ziggy Sauer for recommending me to cover this. If you post down in the comments section, and I hope that you do, I'd like to hear from you about things that you'd like for me to talk about and cover. If it's something I'm familiar with, I have an opinion on. Um that has some kind of validity to it, I will share that with you and go that route like we did tonight. Um, Either way, I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen. Don't forget to check out our Bandcamp website. Go to bandcamp.com, type in Asanoki. For the rest of this month, we are doing a sale on our merch there. Amazing deal on some music you can find there. If you have any questions or thoughts, feel free to drop them down into the chat or comment section below. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. I have my notes here, the things to say, because I always forget to say them. I decided to write it down. And hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest streams and videos. And a happy producing to you guys out there. You should be doing music, so happy producing to you. And I will see you on the Sunday night show. I will be doing a review of that Yamaha. I'll be filming tomorrow for sure, so that'll be coming up as well. Keep an eye out for that. Take a look at my comment on my. Take a look at my post with my Uncle Carlton with Derek Truck's picture there. It's pretty cool. Go over to 3 Chord Dave's channel and check out the live stream, the podcast that we did together. And yeah, it's plenty of stuff to do between now and the next time we talk. I think you'll get over mic'd that way. There's a lot of mic content out there. So check it out, guys. It's always a pleasure to bring it to you. So you take care, and I will see you next one. Bye bye.